Hey everyone, Chris here with another filler episode. Today I'm taking a look at something that predates practically every cube-based 3D engine in existence, Cubes5. Developed in 1994 by Ken Silverman during his work on the Build engine, Cubes5 was an engine prototype, mainly used as a testbed for optimizations in 3D rendering. Though one has to wonder what Duke Nukem 3D would have been like if it had used this instead of the Build engine. Cubes5 functions very much like Minecraft, just with completely different controls, since the idea of mouse look, i.e. being able to precisely aim where you're facing with the mouse, was still a relatively new concept at the time, and it doesn't exist here. Instead, you use the keyboard exclusively for movement and turning, while the mouse functions as a pointer. By pointing the cursor at various surfaces, you can then change their texture, copy their texture, insert a cube on the side you're pointing at, or delete the cube you're focused on. Unlike Minecraft, where each cube is a certain type and does hold its own texture information for all sides, Cubes5 allows you to set whatever texture you want on each side of any cube. Those of you familiar with the Build editor will probably feel right at home, though there are some notable differences, such as the way the texture selection screen works, and of course the controls, and the fact that the Build engine is a 2.5D engine, requiring you to draw sectors and set their ceiling and floor heights. Cubes5 takes place in a full 3D environment within a 16 by 16 by 16 map structure, so having sector walls, floor heights, and ceiling heights wouldn't make much sense. Since this engine was developed before accelerated 3D graphics cards, it uses a bunch of tricks to ensure as fast a rendering of the environment as possible. Firstly, by using cubes, there are a lot of assumptions that can be made about the environment. For example, by checking the angle the camera is facing at, you can instantly know which sides of the cubes will be invisible no matter where those cubes are located. Does meaning you don't have to render those sides. Heck, you don't even have to do the math that you normally would to determine their visibility. Another rendering trick utilized is commonly referred to as portal rendering, where the entire map is subdivided into large areas that are guaranteed to be empty, and each of these areas borders other areas. When a particular area is rendered, a check is made to determine if any of its portals into other areas also need to be rendered. If so, the area beyond that portal is rendered, and then another portal check is performed there. It's similar to the idea of a BSP tree, which was used in Doom to prevent sectors you couldn't possibly see from being rendered. Since the engine is an offshoot of the Build engine, you can actually use the setup program for the Build engine to change the resolution setting of Cubes5, though the default of 640 by 480 is usually good enough. Cubes5 also uses the same texture format as Build, making it possible to add your own textures if you really want to. But since Cubes5 is just a prototype engine, really, there's not much practical use you can get out of it as it is. That said, any of you who've read the bio page on my website knows that I had an idea similar to Minecraft way back since around 2005. Well, when I discovered the Cubes5 engine in early 2009, it was a great help in determining just how feasible such a game would be, and thus I pushed the Cubes5 engine to its limits, developing a practical level layout given the 16 by 16 by 16 map limit, squeezing nearly a dozen rooms into this seemingly tiny amount of space, all interconnected by hallways and elevator shafts. It was only a couple more months afterwards when Infiniminer debuted, and of course Minecraft not long after that. Suffice to say, I was disappointed that other people had beaten me to the punch of developing games with cubicle worlds, though the limitations of Minecraft have thankfully left the artistic aspects of my original idea intact. So perhaps I'll make my game sometime down the road, though I'd probably make it in 2D for sake of simplicity. If you want to check out Cubes5 for yourself, I first need to give some words of caution. Although Ken Silverman fixed the engine up a little before releasing it on his website, it's still very much just a prototype, and thus it has a tendency to lock up for various reasons. Back when I made my epic map, and after taking a look at the source code, I debated with him a little bit about what could have been causing these problems, but those arguments didn't really amount to anything. Suffice to say, save extremely often. Most lockups occur when adding or deleting cubes, though they can also happen if too many empty cubes are visible at once. Thankfully, there are no problems with texturing, and in fact, when it came time to texture the level you're looking at now, the program didn't even lock up once. Beyond that, head on over to Ken Silverman's website at http://www.advsys.net/Ken and head to his projects page if you want to download Cubes5. I'll also post a link on my website to the forum page where I first talked about this back in early 2009, but keep in mind that forum is now closed, and the only reason it's still there is for archival purposes. You'll need to read the text file that comes with Cubes5 to get a list of the controls, and if you run it in DOSBox, you need to make sure you set the cycles count to max. Otherwise, your frame rate will be terrible. Anywho, next week it's back to the usual Ancient DOS Games reviews, and I'm going to kick off the next set of episodes with the mother of all games. If you know which game that is, then send your guess to ADG@pixelships.com and tune in next Saturday to see if it really does live up to that description.